Welcome back, everyone. Today, we're diving headfirst into the world of adventure motorcycles with a closer look at the Benelli TRK 702.
Yeah, it's a bike that's been making some waves lately.
So whether you're actively shopping for a new mid-range adventure bike or just curious about what this model brings to the table, buckle up. This deep dive is for you.
Sounds good.
Now, we're basing our discussion on a recent review, just came out, actually, December 1st, 2024, titled Benelli TRK 702, a comprehensive guide.
Comprehensive is right. It's pretty in-depth.
It really is. So our mission today is to unpack this review, figure out what makes the TRK 702 tick, how it stacks up against its rivals, and ultimately whether it lives up to the hype.
Let's get into it.
Let's do it. First things first, the TRK 702 isn't Benelli's first foray into the adventure bike scene, right? They've already got the TRK 502.
Right, you're absolutely right. The 502 has been around for a while now, and it's really carved out a niche for itself, especially among newer riders and those looking for a more budget-friendly entry into the adventure world.
So sort of building on that success, it seems like the 702 and its more off-road focused sibling, the 702X, are aiming to step things up a notch.
Yeah, definitely. They're going for that same blend of versatility and affordability that the 502 is known for, but with a little more oomph in the engine department and, some really nice upgrades in terms of features and technology.
Now, this review really dives into the specs, and one of the things that jumps out is the 698cc parallel twin engine pumping out, what is it, around 70 horsepower?
Yeah, it's about right.
So for someone who's maybe not as familiar with motorcycle lingo, what does that actually mean in terms of the riding experience?
Well, think of it this way. 70 horsepower in a bike this size, it's a really sweet spot.
Okay, I like where this is going.
You've got enough power on tap to comfortably cruise on the highway, even when you're fully loaded with luggage or, a passenger.
Right, right.
But it's also got that peppy feel, that responsiveness that makes it fun to ride on those twisty back roads or even when you venture off the pavement.
I was just going to say, it's got to have that off-road capability, too.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And the review actually praises the engine's smooth power delivery, saying that it's predictable and manageable across the entire rev range.
Okay, so that means even for someone who's maybe not a seasoned off-road rider, it's not going to feel intimidating.
Exactly. It's not going to feel like a bucking bronco every time you twist the throttle.
I can handle that.
And for more experienced riders, it's still going to be plenty of fun.
Yeah, makes sense. Now, one thing that really caught my eye, they've given this bike a 20-liter fuel tank.
Yeah, that's a pretty generous size for a bike in this class.
That's got to be a game changer for those longer rides.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we're talking a potential range of over 300 miles before you even have to think about refueling.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah, it is. And that opens up a lot of possibilities for, those multi-day adventures, those long-distance touring trips where you really want to cover some ground without constantly being tethered to a gas station.
Exactly. Speaking of different types of riding, you mentioned the 702X earlier, which is the more off-road oriented version.
Right.
Now, the review makes a clear distinction between the two models.
It does, yeah.
So for someone who's, maybe weighing their options, trying to decide which one is right for them, what are those key differences they should be thinking about?
Well, I think one of the most obvious visual cues is the wheels.
Ah, okay.
The 702X comes standard with spoked wheels, which are, much more durable than cast wheels when you're talking about off-road riding.
Especially if you're tackling any rocky terrain or anything like that.
Right. They can flex and absorb impacts much better, so you're less likely to end up with a cracked or bent rim when you hit a pothole or, bounce off a rock.
Yeah, those are the things you want to avoid.
And they've also gone with the classic off-road setup of a 19-inch front wheel and a 17-inch rear.
Got it, yeah.
Which gives you that extra bit of ground clearance and improves the handling on loose surfaces.
So if you're picturing yourself tackling those more technical trails, the 702X is probably going to be the better choice.
Yeah, it's definitely got that extra edge built in when it comes to off-road capability.
No, it's not just about the wheels though, right? The suspension is different too, isn't it?
You bet it is. The 702X gets a serious upgrade in the suspension department.
Okay, so what are we talking about here?
Up front, it's got a longer travel 50-millimeter inverted fork, which basically means it can soak up bigger bumps and provide a smoother ride when you're off the pavement.
Okay, so it's all about that smoothness when you're on those bumpy roads.
Exactly. And in the rear, they've gone with an adjustable monoshock.
That sounds fancy.
It's pretty cool. Basically, it's a single shock absorber that handles both the springing and damping, and it's adjustable, so you can fine-tune it to your liking, based on how you ride and the kind of terrain you're tackling.
So you can really personalize it to your riding style and the conditions you're going to be in.
Exactly.
Hmm.
And then to really top things off, they've fitted the 702X with Pirelli Scorpion STR rally tires.
Oh, those are some serious off-road tires.
Yeah, they're not your average street tires.
No kidding.
They're designed specifically for grip on dirt and gravel with a more aggressive tread pattern and a compound that's optimized for traction when you're off the beaten path.
So it's clear that the 702X is aimed at the serious off-road enthusiast.
It is, for sure.
But what about the base TRK 702? Is it still capable of handling some light off-roading if you want to, venture off the pavement every now and then?
Absolutely. Don't get me wrong. The base model is still a very capable bike.
Okay, good to know.
It just leans a little more towards the road-biased side of things.
So it's like the perfect middle ground for someone who, maybe commutes during the week but wants to explore some gravel roads or fire trails on the weekends.
Exactly. It's a great all-rounder.
All right, let's shift gears a little bit and talk about the technology on this bike.
Sounds good.
Because this review really highlights some impressive features, especially for a bike in this price range.
Yeah, Benelli didn't skimp on the tech.
So we're talking a 5-inch TFT display, LED lighting all around,
Yep.
and even the option for heated grips and seats, which is not something you see every day on a mid-range adventure bike.
It's a nice touch, especially for those colder climates.
Okay, so let's break this down a bit.
Yeah.
Starting with that TFT display, that's more than just a fancy screen, right?
Oh, yeah. It's a high-resolution color display that gives you all your essential information. Your speed, RPM, gear position, fuel level, all that good stuff, in a really clear and easy-to-read format.
Okay, so it's all right there at your fingertips.
But here's the really cool part. It also offers Bluetooth connectivity.
Ah, very nice.
So you can pair your smartphone and use it for navigation, get notifications, even control your music.
Wow, that's pretty advanced for a motorcycle.
It is.
Yeah.
And it makes a huge difference, especially for longer rides.
Yeah, I can imagine having all that information readily available without having to, fumble with your phone or take your eyes off the road.
Exactly. It just adds another layer of convenience and safety to the whole riding experience.
And speaking of safety, LED lighting, that's more than just a stylistic choice, right? It actually has practical benefits.
Oh, absolutely. LEDs are they're much brighter and more energy efficient than traditional halogen bulbs.
Right?
But the real advantage is in terms of visibility, especially when you're riding at night or in low light conditions.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You get a much clearer, more defined beam of light that really illuminates the road ahead.
Oh, okay. And that's got to be crucial for adventure riding when you're often venturing off the beaten path where streetlights are few and far between.
For sure. And, it can also enhance your visibility to other drivers, which is always a plus in terms of safety.
Now, those heated grips and seats, I'm intrigued by this because it's not something you see every day on a bike in this category.
It's definitely a premium feature.
It is. So is that standard equipment or is that an optional extra?
It's an optional extra, so it's not going to come standard on every TRK 702.
Okay.
But it's a great option to have, especially if you live in a colder climate or if you're someone who likes to, extend your riding season into the shoulder months when the temperatures start to drop.
Right. So if you're the type who doesn't let a little bit of cold weather stop you from riding, those heated grips and seats are going to be a game changer.
Oh, absolutely. Imagine cruising through a crisp autumn morning with those heated grips keeping your hands toasty warm.
Sounds pretty inviting.
Yeah, it's definitely a nice way to stay comfortable on those chilly rides.
All right, let's get into some of the more specific details here.
Okay.
The review lists the seat height as 830 millimeters, which sounds pretty tall.
It is, yeah. 830 millimeters is on the taller side for sure.
So is this a bike that's only suitable for taller riders, or can someone who's maybe, a little shorter still manage it?
That's a good question. And, it really depends on the rider.
Right, makes sense.
While a taller rider might find it more comfortable right off the bat, it doesn't necessarily mean a shorter rider can't handle it.
So it's not a deal breaker for someone who's, not super tall.
Not at all. The key is being able to flat-foot at a stop. And that depends on a few things, your inseam length, your confidence level, and even just good riding technique can make a big difference.
So it's worth taking it for a test ride, seeing how it feels.
Oh, absolutely. Always a good idea to get a feel for the bike before you commit.
Now, another spec that people often talk about is the weight.
Right.
And the TRK 702 comes in at 222 kilograms dry, which, it's not exactly a lightweight.
It's got some heft to it for sure.
So does that translate to a clunky or cumbersome riding experience?
That's a common concern. But here's the thing about motorcycles.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just about the overall weight. It's about how that weight is distributed.
So it's all about that balance.
Exactly. A well-balanced bike can feel surprisingly nimble and easy to handle, even if it's, not the lightest on paper.
So it's not necessarily going to feel like you're wrestling a bear every time you try to maneuver it.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
And from what we're seeing in this review, it sounds like Benelli has done a pretty good job with the weight distribution on the TRK 702.
Okay, good to hear.
They've engineered it so that it feels planted at speed, which is important for highway riding and touring.
Right.
But it's also manageable at lower speeds, when you're navigating traffic or
Yeah.
tackling those off-road obstacles.
So it strikes a good balance between stability and agility.
That's the goal, for sure.
All right, so we've talked about the engine, the off-road capabilities, the tech, even the weight imbalance.
Yep.
But no motorcycle discussion would be complete without talking about the competition.
True that.
And this review compares the TRK 702 to two pretty popular bikes in this segment, the Honda CB500X and the KTM 890 Adventure.
Yeah, those are two strong contenders.
So what can you tell us about these comparisons? How does the TRK 702 stack up?
Well, if you look at it purely from an engine size and power perspective, the Benelli kind of sits right in the middle.
Okay.
It's got more punch than the Honda CB500X,
Right.
but it doesn't quite match the raw power of the KTM 890 Adventure.
So it's like the Goldilocks of adventure bikes, not too hot, not too cold, just right.
I like that analogy. And, that kind of reflects in the price point, too.
Ah, okay, so let's talk about price, because that's always a big factor.
It is, and that's one of the TRK 702's major selling points. It comes in significantly cheaper than the KTM 890 Adventure.
Wow, that's got to be appealing to a lot of riders.
It is, especially those who are budget conscious but, still want a capable and well-equipped adventure bike.
Right, so value for money seems to be a big part of the TRK 702's appeal.
It definitely seems that way.
So how about the comparison to the Honda CB500X? How do they stack up?
Well, the Honda it's a great bike. It's known for being super reliable and user-friendly.
Yeah, it's got a really good reputation.
It does.
Mm.
And it's also a bit lighter and more manageable than the Benelli, which might appeal to newer riders or, folks who are maybe a little less experienced.
Okay.
But the Benelli offers a more modern feature set. We talked about that TFT display and the option for the heated components.
Right, right.
And it also has that little bit of extra power, which can be nice for longer rides or, if you're riding two up with a passenger.
So it seems like the TRK 702 kind of strikes a balance between the approachability of the Honda and the more hardcore performance of the KTM.
I think that's a really good way to put it. It's carving out its own niche in the market.
Okay, well, we've covered a lot of ground already, from engine specs and off-road prowess to tech features and comparisons with the competition.
We've been busy.
But there's still much more to explore.
Oh, there is, for sure. We only just scratched the surface.
We'll be right back with more insights on the Benelli TRK 702 in part 2 of our deep dive.
Looking forward to it.
All right, we're back on the road with our deep dive into the Benelli TRK 702.
Still got plenty of miles to cover.
We've talked about, the power, the off-road capabilities, the tech, but there's one area we haven't touched on yet that's crucial for any motorcycle: safety.
Oh, absolutely. Safety should always be a top priority, especially when we're talking about adventure bikes that, might be venturing off the beaten path.
Right, where conditions can be a little unpredictable.
Exactly.
And it seems like Benelli hasn't cut corners in this department.
Not at all.
The review highlights some pretty impressive safety features.
Yeah, they've definitely put some thought into it.
Right off the bat, both the standard TRK 702 and the 702X come equipped with dual front disc brakes with 320mm rotors.
That's a pretty substantial braking surface.
Yeah, those are some serious rotors, so I'm guessing that translates to some pretty impressive stopping power.
It does. Those large rotors, they provide a lot of surface area for the brake pads to clamp down on, which means you can, scrub off speed quickly and efficiently when you need to.
And to make things even better, they've also included a sophisticated anti-lock braking system, or ABS.
ABS is a must-have these days.
Now, for those who might not be as familiar with motorcycle technology, can you explain what ABS does and why it's so important?
Sure. So ABS is basically a safety system that prevents the wheels from locking up during hard braking.
Okay.
It uses wheel speed sensors and a modulator to control the brake pressure and make sure that the wheels maintain traction even when you're braking really hard.
So without ABS, if you slam on the brakes, what happens?
Well, without ABS, the wheels can lock up, and when that happens, the bike can skid and you can lose control.
Ah, okay. So it's like having a safety net that helps you maintain control even in those, panic stop situations.
Exactly. And that's especially important on slippery surfaces or loose gravel where it's much easier to lose traction.
Right, where those wheels can lock up pretty easily.
Exactly.
So it gives you that extra peace of mind knowing that the bike is going to help you stop safely even in those challenging conditions.
Exactly. It can really make a difference.
Now, speaking of things that can affect the riding experience, the review mentions that the TRK 702 has a dry weight of 222 kilograms.
Right.
That's not exactly lightweight.
It's not a featherweight, that's for sure.
So does that mean it feels heavy or cumbersome to handle?
Well, as we touched on earlier, it's not just about the overall weight, it's about how that weight is distributed. A well-balanced motorcycle can feel much lighter and more agile than a poorly balanced one, even if they have, the same weight on the scales.
So it's not just about the numbers on the spec sheet, it's about how the bike actually feels when you're riding it.
Exactly. And that's where Benelli's engineering comes into play.
Right.
They've clearly put a lot of thought into the weight distribution of the TRK 702.
Yeah.
From what we're gathering from the review, it seems like they've found a really good balance.
Okay, that's good to hear.
It's stable at speed, which is, crucial for highway riding and touring.
Right, especially if you're loaded up with luggage.
Exactly. But it's also manageable at lower speeds and when you're maneuvering, off-road.
So it's not going to feel like a handful when you're, trying to navigate tight turns or obstacles.
No, it shouldn't.
That's reassuring to hear, because a bike that feels too top-heavy or unstable can be a real challenge, especially when you're venturing off the beaten path.
Oh, absolutely. You want a bike that inspires confidence, not anxiety, right?
Exactly. So it sounds like Benelli has achieved that balance with the TRK 702.
It seems that way.
It's not a featherweight, but it's not a lumbering beast either.
It's a good in-between.
It's a bike that feels capable and confident in a variety of riding situations.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Now, all this talk about performance and safety is great,
Mm-hmm.
but let's not forget about one of the most important factors for any motorcycle: comfort.
Oh, comfort is key,
Yeah.
especially for adventure riding where you might be spending hours in the saddle.
Right, long-distance comfort has got to be a key consideration.
It is.
So what does the review have to say about the TRK 702's comfort level?
Well, according to the review, Benelli has paid close attention to ergonomics.
Okay.
The seat, for example, is designed to be comfortable, even on longer rides.
Ah, that's important.
They've used high-density foam and a shape that's meant to provide good support and distribute weight evenly.
So no more feeling like you're sitting on a brick after a couple of hours.
Exactly. Your backside will thank you.
I'm all for adventure, but I don't want it to come at the expense of, my backside.
Nobody does.
And it's not just about the seat, right? The handlebars, the foot pegs, it all plays a role.
Oh, absolutely. It's all connected.
So tell me about that.
Well, the handlebars are positioned to create a natural and upright riding position,
Okay.
which helps to minimize fatigue on your wrists and back.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And the foot pegs are placed in a way that allows for a comfortable leg position, even for taller riders.
So it sounds like they've really thought about those long-haul riders who want to cover some serious distances.
They definitely have. And, remember that 20-liter fuel tank we talked about earlier?
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
That plays a big part in long-distance comfort, too. Fewer fuel stops means less time fidgeting around at gas stations and more time enjoying the open road.
Or exploring those hidden trails.
Exactly.
That's a great point. It's not just about the physical comfort of the bike, it's also about the convenience and peace of mind that comes with having a good range.
It all adds up to a more enjoyable and relaxing riding experience, that's for sure.
Okay, so we've talked about the engine, the off-road capabilities, the tech, the safety features, even the weight and balance, and now we've delved into the comfort aspects.
We've covered a lot.
But there's one more crucial aspect we need to address before we wrap up this deep dive.
Elephant in the room.
The question that's often on everyone's mind when they're considering a new bike: the price tag.
Ah, yes, the price. Because at the end of the day, the price can be a make or break factor for a lot of potential buyers.
It can.
Yeah.
Especially in this segment of the market where there's a lot of competition.
So much to choose from.
All right, so let's get down to brass tacks.
Let's do it.
What's the damage for the Benelli TRK 702?
Well, according to the review, the base TRK 702 comes in at around $8,000 US.
$8,000.
That's for the standard model.
$8,000. That seems That seems pretty reasonable for a bike with this level of features and performance.
It's a very competitive price point,
Yeah.
especially when you compare it to some of its rivals.
Right. We talked earlier about the Honda CB500X and the KTM 890 Adventure.
Yeah.
Now, the Honda is a bit more affordable, starting at around, what was it, $7,300?
Yeah. That's somewhere around there.
But as we discussed, it doesn't quite have the same level of features or power as the Benelli.
Right.
And then there's the KTM 890 Adventure, which is a fantastic bike, don't get me wrong.
Oh, it's a beast.
But it comes with a much higher price tag,
It does.
starting at around $13,400.
Yeah, quite a jump.
So the Benelli TRK 702 seems to be hitting that sweet spot of affordability and capability,
Right. It really does. It's offering a lot of value for the money.
which is always a good thing.
Always a good thing.
Now, I know you've ridden a lot of different bikes over the years.
I've been around the block a few times.
So what's your gut feeling about the TRK 702? Does it live up to the hype?
You know, from what I'm seeing in this review and just based on my knowledge of the segment, I think Benelli has done a really good job with this bike.
Yeah.
They've created a bike that's well-rounded, capable, and, appealing to a wide range of riders.
It's not trying to be the most extreme off-road machine, nor is it a bare-bones budget bike.
Exactly. It's not trying to be something, it's not.
It seems to be hitting that middle ground, offering a bit of everything without compromising too much in any one area.
I think that's a really good way to put it, and that's what I find so appealing about it.
Yeah.
It's a bike that can handle your daily commute, take you on weekend adventures, and even tackle some longer touring trips.
All without breaking the bank.
Exactly.
It's like the Swiss Army knife of motorcycles.
I like that. Ready for anything.
And, it's interesting that you mentioned the adventure aspect because when we talk about adventure bikes,
Right.
we often focus on the technical capabilities,
Respects.
the off-road prowess, the ruggedness.
Uh,
But there's another side to adventure riding that I think the TRK 702 embodies really well.
oh, tell me more about that.
It's about the journey itself.
Okay.
The experience of traveling, of seeing new places, of feeling that sense of freedom and exploration.
It's about the experience, not just the destination.
Exactly. And for that kind of riding, you need a bike that's comfortable, reliable, and versatile enough to handle a variety of conditions.
For sure.
And that's where the TRK 702 really shines.
It ticks all those boxes.
It's like the perfect companion for those epic cross-country rides,
Uh-huh.
those weekend getaways, those moments when you just want to escape the daily grind and lose yourself in the ride.
That's what it's all about.
As much as I love dissecting specs and features, you've just reminded me of what it's really all about.
That's that.
The joy of riding, the
Yeah.
sense of adventure,
A feeling of freedom.
the stories we collect along the way.
Memories you make, exactly.
And speaking of stories, I'm curious to hear from our listeners.
Oh, yeah.
If you could take the TRK 702 on an adventure, where would you go?
Ooh, that's a good question.
What kind of roads would you seek out? What stories would you bring back?
I'd love to hear what our listeners have in mind.
Yeah. We'll have to continue this conversation on our social media channels.
Sounds good.
But for now, it's time to wrap up this part of our deep dive.
Right.
We've covered a lot of ground, but there's still one more piece of the puzzle we need to explore.
We can't leave any stone unturned.
We'll be back shortly with the final part of our deep dive into the Benelli TRK 702.
All right, we're back for the final stretch of our deep dive into the Benelli TRK 702.
Ready to wrap things up?
We've covered a lot of ground.
We have engine performance, off-road capabilities, tech features,
Comfort, safety, even price.
pretty much everything you need to know. But as we were discussing before the break, there's something about this bike that goes beyond just the spec sheet.
Yeah, there's a certain, a certain feeling it evokes.
Right.
A sense of possibility.
Almost like an invitation to adventure.
Exactly. Open horizons, journeys waiting to be taken.
And I think that's what makes it so intriguing.
It's more than just a machine. It's a gateway to a certain kind of experience.
And that experience is, well, it's about more than just getting from point A to point B.
Oh, absolutely. It's about the journey itself.
It's about connecting with nature, breaking free from the daily grind, discovering new places.
It's about feeling that sense of freedom.
And I think Benelli has really tapped into that with the TRK 702.
They have. They've created a bike that seems, perfectly suited to that kind of yearning.
It's not about being the fastest or the most powerful.
Right. It's about being the right tool for a specific kind of adventure.
And I think that's reflected in the choices they've made with this bike.
Oh, yeah. The comfortable ergonomics, the long-distance fuel range.
That blend of on-road manners and off-road capability.
It all points to a machine designed for Well, for experiencing the journey.
Not just reaching the destination.
Exactly.
It's like they're saying, here's a bike that can take you anywhere you want to go. Now go out there and create your own story.
And I think that message resonates with a lot of riders.
It does.
It's not just about the bike itself. It's about the potential it represents,
The freedom it offers.
the memories you create along the way.
You know, as we've been talking, I've been picturing myself on a TRK 702,
Yeah.
winding my way through a mountain pass. The air is crisp and cool. The scenery is breathtaking.
Ah, that sounds amazing.
It's that sense of immersion.
Right, being fully present in the moment.
That's what makes riding so special.
It's a sensory experience unlike any other.
And the TRK 702, with its blend of capability and approachability,
It just seems like the perfect companion for that kind of mindful exploration.
it does.
It's a bike that invites you to slow down, savor the ride, appreciate the little details along the way.
It's not about rushing, it's about embracing the journey itself.
Well said.
It's like hitting the reset button on life, even if it's just for a weekend, a day, or even an hour.
Yeah,
It's about reconnecting with yourself and the world around you.
that's a beautiful way to put it.
And you know, I think that's the beauty of motorcycles in general.
What's that?
They have this unique ability to transport us, both physically and mentally.
They allow us to escape, to explore, to experience life in a more, I don't know, a more visceral way.
And the TRK 702 seems to embody that spirit perfectly.
It does.
It's an invitation to adventure,
A call to explore.
a reminder that there's a whole world out there waiting to be discovered.
So to our listeners who are considering a new adventure bike,
Mm-hmm.
I'd say this. If you're looking for a machine that's capable, comfortable, and affordable,
And one that speaks to your adventurous spirit.
the TRK 702 is definitely worth a closer look.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
And to those who are already out there exploring, keep riding, keep discovering, and keep sharing those incredible stories.
Because that's what it's all about.
That's what it's all about.
Well, that's a wrap on our deep dive into the Benelli TRK 702.
Hope you enjoyed the ride.
We hope you've enjoyed the ride as much as we have. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep those adventure spirits high.
Ride safe out there.
We'll see you on the next deep dive.